Hi, everyone. I'm Yazad Dalal, Chief Growth Officer here at Joveo, and welcome to Recruiting Realities, where we bring to you the latest developments and insights in recruitment. Today, we're speaking again with our own in-house labor market economist, David Garrett, and with our friend Dave Wilkins from our wonderful partners, Talent Neuron. Talent Neuron are the experts in strategic workforce planning, talent marketplace, and market intelligence solutions. The three of us are going to be talking about the U.S. jobs report for January 2025, along with their insights and predictions into what we can expect in the rest of the year. And for our listeners, at Joveo, we publish interactive insights across all major occupations across the U.S. You can check that out on our website, joveo.com/interactive-insights. So David Garrett, let's get started. The most recent U.S. jobs report came out for the month of January. The U.S. labor market added an estimated 143,000 jobs, less than the 169,000 that we were expecting. And the unemployment rate dropped ever so slightly for the second month in a row to 4%, down from 4.1 in December. And I think importantly, the January report also had revisions to all the job data from March 2023 to March 2024, which completely changed the total number of jobs added for that period by like 600,000. So the size of the US population, the labor force, which had inflated the unemployment and labor force participation rate by 1.1%, which I know to our listeners may not sound like a lot, but that means that almost 3 million people went unaccounted for. So that's interesting. And in Joveo's own data, we continue to see significant increases in healthcare openings. And we see that the government, oddly, continues to hire despite everything we're seeing in the news. So David, I have lots of questions. Let's get started. David Garrett, first off for you, what are your key takeaways from this latest report?
Yeah, I mean, even though, job growth wasn't as spectacular as I think many were hoping, it's kind of a continuation of the previous trends we've seen throughout 2024. And the labor market has kind of just continued to stay resilient while continuing this sort of slowdown into a soft landing. Healthcare, social assistance, and government employment, kind of as you mentioned, continued trending upwards, while others stayed relatively stable. The only standout I could see was, I believe, retail, which had an estimated 34,000 job growth in January. And that's a change from the very little net growth throughout all of 2024. It'll be more interesting to see how these changes how these trends change as we go on into the year, and particularly into February.
So what do you think we're going to see in the February report, and what do you think we're going to see across the rest of the year? Are there any insights or predictions you think our listeners should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still too early to give any official estimates, and I think you see that pretty generally shared across most sources. I think it's very likely we'll continue to see slower growth. Maybe an increase in the unemployment rate, particularly due to the federal hiring freeze and layoffs that have happened. It'll be a very stark contrast to last year where we saw government employment just kind of continue to expand.
Well, I think our friends over at Talent Neuron can help fill us in on this. I'd love to hear what trends and outcomes they're seeing in their data. Dave Wilkins, over to you.
Yeah, I certainly can echo the sentiment. 2024 was definitely a very strong year for federal job postings. What we're seeing right now for January seems, though, to be markedly different. Federal government job postings fell by over a third in January year over year. Not surprising, I think, given all the news we've heard recently. What might be a surprise, though, is when you look at specific agencies in the federal government, there are agencies that are still hiring through January. And while the federal job postings are down overall, it's really not across every agency. For example, in January, Department of Defense year over year was up 115%. Department of Homeland Security was up 4%. The other big thing I think that's worth thinking though through as well, and we see this in the private sector as well, is that there's often sort of a mixed situation going on. Like Department of Treasury, hiring's down overall by about 56%. But when you look at hiring for analyst roles or hiring for AI kind of roles, those are both still up year over year. And we see similar kinds of things when we look at the private sector in the last 6 months or so. As people are experiencing layoffs, it's often about redistributing talent into other areas. So there might be a loss of talent in a particular function, but a gain in talent as people are executing strategic pivots. We're seeing similar kind of things in the federal government as well. So, I think all of this, to David's point, will be borne out in February and March as we get more trends and more data. But I think we're seeing similar things to what you guys just articulated.
Awesome. Well, look, I want to thank you, Dave Wilkins, and of course, David Garrett. And thank you to all of our listeners. Don't forget to visit us at joveo.com, and we'll see you again soon.